Welcome. If you're looking to really get to grips with complex topics quickly and, well, thoroughly, you're in the right place.
That's the goal.
Today, we're tackling effective leadership. It's such a huge topic, especially now, and we want to move beyond the sort of simplistic models you often hear about.
Absolutely. And we have a really solid source to guide us.
Yeah.
An article by Marynes Pereira called Neurobusiness de Liderança, a força da diversidade cognitiva além do género, para decisões superiores y suceso.
Right. And she's got, what, 40 years in the corporate world, plus expertise in neurobusiness?
Exactly. Decades of experience. So
Yeah.
everything we discussed today, it's grounded in her insights from that article. We should absolutely credit her throughout.
Definitely. So our mission for you listening is to pull out the real essentials from her work. We're talking about what strong leadership actually is, that balance between rights and responsibilities.
The huge importance of cognitive diversity, thinking differently.
Yes, and how to spot, real leadership versus maybe someone just misusing their power. There are some surprising points in here.
There really are. I think the first thing that jumps out right from the start of Pereira's article is this idea that strength in leadership is basically non-negotiable.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack strength, though, because I think sometimes that word, it can sound negative, can't it?
It can, but what Pereira seems to be getting at is fundamental. People just don't follow leaders who seem weak or indecisive.
Our brains don't like uncertainty from the person in charge.
That's exactly it. She points out how hesitation, that lack of clear direction, it registers negatively in our brains. We instinctively look for security, for confidence from a leader. Firmness provides that.
It's interesting. She brings up a specific cultural point, too, about women in leadership, particularly in Brazil. This fear of being seen as, like, too aggressive or mandona bossy just for being assertive.
Yeah, that's a really critical observation. It highlights the double standard or an added layer of difficulty.
It feels like walking a tightrope sometimes.
And Pereira makes a distinction that's key here. Being firm, holding people to agreements, maintaining clear boundaries that isn't the same as being insensitive or, well, inhumane.
Right, it's not personal.
Exactly. In fact, she argues that kind of firmness, that clarity, it can actually create a more secure environment. People know where they stand. It's predictable. Our brains kind of like that.
Okay, so it's about structure, not aggression, which leads nicely into this next point. Where is that line between being assertive and, actually dehumanizing someone? What's the real difference there?
Well, Pereira is quite clear on this. Dehumanization isn't about holding someone accountable or demanding high standards. It's about a lack of respect for their basic dignity, their inherent worth as a person.
It's how you do it.
It's absolutely how you do it. It's the manner. Are you attacking the person, or are you addressing the behavior, the issue, the agreement?
That makes sense. You can be tough on the issue, but respectful of the person.
Precisely. Pereira uses this phrase, tough and fair. Set clear rules, communicate what you expect, no ambiguity, and then, crucially, make sure those agreements are rigorously followed, but always with respect.
And this connects to her concept of Democratura, which is, well, it's a striking word.
It is, isn't it? It sounds a bit jarring at first.
Yeah, explain that. What does she mean by Democratura?
Okay, so think of it in two phases. First, there's the democracy part. This is where you discuss, you align, you get input, you establish the rules together, set the timelines. Everyone involved helps shape the what and how for the good of the project or the team.
Right, collaborative agreement building makes sense. But then the dictatorship part.
Yeah, the dictadura part.
Yeah.
It sounds harsh, but it's not about tyranny. It's about the necessary inflexibility in execution. Once the agreement is made democratically, the leader needs to be firm, you could say dictatorial, in a very specific sense about ensuring it gets done, on time, to standard.
Because otherwise the democratic part was pointless.
Exactly. If you're wishy-washy on the follow-through, the whole agreement collapses. Trust erodes. It becomes unfair to those who are sticking to the plan.
Okay, I see. It's about the integrity of the process. She actually uses the U.S. as an example here, suggesting maybe there's sometimes an imbalance, like a lot of focus on rights, maybe not always enough on the corresponding responsibilities.
Yes, she touches on that. The idea that rights aren't just automatic, they're kind of earned, or at least maintained, by fulfilling your side of the bargain, your duties, respecting the societal or team agreements.
It's a reciprocal thing.
Right. And if you don't enforce the agreed-upon rules, if there are no consequences for, say, missing deadlines or not meeting standards, then you're implicitly penalizing the people who do comply. It undermines their effort.
That's a really powerful point. So effective leadership, in Pereira's view, uses this Democratura, flexible and open in the planning, the discussion phase,
Uh-huh.
but then absolutely resolute when it comes to making sure the plan actually happens, to get results and maintain fairness.
Precisely. It's that blend.
Okay, now she takes a really interesting turn here, using artificial intelligence as an analogy. How does that connect to leadership?
It's a clever way to talk about cognitive diversity, or the lack of it.
Yeah.
She compares our brains, or rather our ingrained thinking patterns, to an AI algorithm.
Okay.
Like an AI learns from data, our brains learn from our library of experiences, our culture, upbringing, education, social interactions, history.
Mm.
All of it shapes our neural pathways.
So it shapes how we process information, how we see problems, how we naturally approach solutions. Different backgrounds mean different mental training data.
Exactly. And she suggests that historically, maybe based on gender roles or cultural norms, different groups might have had different kinds of training, leading to different focuses in their mental libraries.
And some of those libraries, maybe the ones traditionally dominant in leadership, might overemphasize certain things, like, say, purely linear, rational thinking.
That's her point. That this can lead to a kind of limited deep learning in our human leadership models. We end up with a potentially narrow, maybe even dogmatic, cognitive algorithm for leadership.
It's like training an AI on only one type of image. It won't recognize anything else. So if our leadership teams all think in very similar ways, using the same cognitive levers,
How can we possibly expect different results,
Hmm.
especially when faced with really complex, novel problems?
It's a great question.
And she points out this irony. We worry a lot about biased AI algorithms, right? Because they're trained on skewed data.
Yeah, it's a huge discussion.
Yet she argues we often just passively accept potentially flawed, limited human algorithms in our leaders, maybe because they feel familiar.
Ooh, that's uncomfortable. Familiarity doesn't mean optimal, does it?
Not at all. That familiarity might just be a false sense of stability. And she uses a really concrete example. Think about speaker panels at professional events. How often do they look and sound? Well, very similar.
Yeah, you see that a lot, a lack of different perspectives.
It's not just about visual representation, though that's part of it. It's about a lack of genuinely diverse cognitive styles,
Yeah.
different ways of processing the world.
Right. If everyone approaches a problem from the same angle, using the same mental tools.
You limit the potential solutions.
Hmm.
You limit the quality of the discussion. You miss things. Environments dominated by one algorithm tend to repeat old patterns. They develop blind spots. They resist disruptive ideas.
And they really struggle with complexity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whereas creativity, resilience, adaptability,
Yeah.
these things flourish at the intersection of different ideas, different brain processes.
And there's actual data backing this up now, right? Pereira mentions research.
Yes, she points to growing evidence from places like McKinsey, BCG, academic studies, showing a clear link between diversity and leadership, and again, this is cognitive diversity, which includes but isn't limited to gender, and better performance, better financial results,
Because you get richer debates, deeper analysis.
better spotting of risks and opportunities, more innovation, faster adaptation. It all comes back to having a more complete, more varied collective library to draw from.
Makes perfect sense when you frame it like that. Now, shifting gears slightly, but still connected to leadership effectiveness, Pereira makes a really crucial distinction between strong, fair leadership and something else entirely, psychopathy in power.
Yes, this is vital. She references ponerology, which is the study of, essentially, how individuals with personality disorders, particularly psychopathic traits, gain and misuse power.
Because sometimes the surface behaviors can look similar, like decisiveness or staying cool under pressure.
Exactly. Those traits, lack of empathy, manipulativeness, intense self-focus, disregarding others' rights, they can sometimes be masked by superficial charm or what looks like bold decision-making. And people drawn to power might possess these traits.
So how do you tell them apart? The tough but fair leader versus the psychopath in a suit.
The absolute core difference is motivation and ethics. The fair leader, even when tough, operates from principles. They're aiming for the group's good, even if the decisions are hard or unpopular short-term. They respect people's dignity. Their firmness is about building something functional, sustainable.
Okay, so the why behind the actions is different.
Completely different. The individual with psychopathic traits is driven purely by personal gain, control, ego. Manipulation and intimidation are their tools. Their decisions often ignore the impact on others, or worse, intentionally cause harm to maintain dominance. Any respect they show is purely an act, a tactic.
Pereira uses a striking image comparing the stone thrown by each type.
Yes. The fair leader's stone might be necessary, maybe tough feedback or a course correction, meant constructively, even if it stings.
Mm.
It's aimed at the issue.
But the psychopath stone.
Is meant to annihilate, to crush opposition, to maintain control through fear. It's personal destruction. The pathology isn't about how they think linear or holistic. It's the fundamental lack of empathy and ethics.
That's a chilling but very clear distinction. It underlines that real leadership isn't just about skill or charisma. Pereira really hits home that it's about being the example, isn't it?
Absolutely. It boils down to coherence. Your words and actions have to align consistently. That's the foundation of trust.
You have to walk the talk.
And take responsibility
Yeah.
for the wins and the losses.
Yeah.
You have to back your ideas with the courage to actually see them through.
She also brings up an interesting point about power dynamics, how historically knowledge and money have been key pillars. And sometimes, especially in systems favoring those, well, limited algorithms we talked about.
Money can unfortunately scale things or push things through faster than just knowledge or good ideas alone. It can amplify the existing biases.
Which leads to her final strategic point, the need for leaders, especially those challenging the status quo, to have a plan B.
Yes. In environments where the algorithms are biased, where power structures resist change, you need adaptability.
Yeah.
You need alternatives. You need resilience to overcome that resistance from those who benefit from things staying the same.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. As we wrap up this deep dive, what are the absolute key takeaways you think listeners should hold on to?
For me, it's that true strength in leadership involves decisiveness, yes, but it must be paired with fairness, that Democratura idea. And critically, embracing cognitive diversity isn't just nice to have, it's essential for superior decisions in our complex world.
And remembering that being strong or assertive is absolutely not the same as being a psychopath. The intention and the respect for others are the defining factors. Assertiveness isn't automatically inhumane.
Precisely. We really need to actively challenge those old, maybe ingrained thinking patterns, often rooted in historical biases, and deliberately bring in diverse perspectives.
Because the evidence shows it leads to better results, right? Avoiding blind spots, processing information more fully.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. Given how many limited perspectives might still be dominant, just imagine the potential. What could we achieve if we truly aligned our leadership approaches with how our brains actually work best by embracing the richness of all those different mental libraries?
That's a powerful question. Ultimately, leadership that shows respect, follows through on commitments, leads by example even when firmness is needed, that's what builds lasting results and hopefully a fairer future.
Well said.
And a big thank you again to Marynes Pereira for her insights in the article Neurobusiness da Liderança, a força da diversidade cognitiva além do gênero para decisões superiores e sucesso, which formed the basis of our discussion today.